tax rate ordinance will be prepared with 5.49 mils unless we receive direction otherwise here tonight.
I would like to see 5.52 mils. I think it's negligible in the amount spread over the city, and I think it would move up our fund balance to within 0.1% by the fifth year, rather than pushing it out more. I think 5.52 is reasonable.
I'd agree.
Pardon me?
So I like the proposed millage because for the same thing, it's negligible to us, the difference, but it means a lot, I think, to taxpayers that are seeing that number static while their property values have gone up 11%. As was pointed out, when we look at next year, we're considering a 7% increase in those tax revenues, and we did that last year too. We considered that we'd probably have a 7% increase this year, and I know that 4.9 is well above 7%, but it's a reduction in the millage rate. And I think that, what happened in the past year is unprecedented. Things cost a lot more, and we still want to provide all the services and the infrastructure that we planned on, and the things are a lot more expensive than they were when we talked about last year's budget. But I do think that we have a whole bunch of smart people that put together a budget with a number attached to it, and that's the number I like.
I see your point of view, and I respect your point of view, but we're talking about $200,000 that could go toward our fund balance and get us to the 20% that we want, that we have determined over many, many years that we need, and be prepared for the next emergency that comes along, just like the fund balance pulled us out of the fire, during the 2008 recession and then during COVID. And I think part of being prudent is to get that fund balance back there as quickly as possible. I understand that, and I've said this before, I pay these taxes too, but you take $200,000 and put it across the whole city, you're talking, under $20 a year for most people. And I don't know if you have an average homeowner's amount or whatever, but it's negligible. It's like, maybe $1 a month or something like that, which is real to some people, and it's real to people. But then again, we have a responsibility to have a fund balance that's gonna keep the city safe and keep the city services going. And I think this is our opportunity to do it. Next year, as we get closer, maybe we can make adjustments, but I think we have the opportunity to do it now. And it's our opportunity, and I would hate to see us push it out yet another year.
Well, next week you can make a motion for that and see how the vote goes.
Well, yeah, but we're here to talk about it now, to talk about consensus, and then, to have the conversation.
So we're not going to make a decision on it.
No.
Certainly can bring both numbers.
Yeah.
Is there a way to allocate, and again, I like getting to the fund balance goal as soon as possible, so then we can start, clicking away at the deficit, the pension plans, because I think, we need to get both of those things rolling at some point. Kicking a can down the road is not, really, I don't want to be the federal government and keep saying, let tomorrow's taxpayer worry about this. We at some point have to start, taking care of that. So, and again, I don't know. I still want to talk further on what the real goal should be. We should have set that up. But
for the pension, you're saying.
For the pension, right? But I know that it has fund balance where it needs to be will help us then, put our attention more towards building the balance on the or maybe splitting the baby and trying to work on both at the same time is an answer. But I respect our team, and I want to go with what they have to say. But for me, if we're going to do it, I like the fund balance idea, or I like the looking at the pension. I wouldn't want to just add additional cost on, because I don't think that's it's not getting us to either one of our goals. Of some of these things are pretty important in my mind. I just don't like to be behind I'm a Dave Ramsey guy, so I like to get things paid for, as soon as possible.
Yeah, one thing I know about the projections for the fund balance are they're not right.
Yeah, right.
They're guesses,
No matter what.
right? And then the farther out you look, the more likely they're wrong.
Yep, agreed.
And so, I mean, I'm gonna, there's a dead horse that's gonna be beat here, but as I said before, we planned for 7% increase this year, and we're well above that. So I think it's an opportunity to give a little bit of a break to the taxpayer. It's not gonna be much, it's gonna be $20, right? But we're also increasing fees in 2 different areas.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's worth the gesture, if you will. For some property owners, it's gonna be a lot more than that, I would assume. But for most homeowners, it's gonna be about $20 that we're giving them back.
It's a psychological effect.
Yeah, I agree. And it's worth it, because in the end, it's not a big chunk to us. And we can do everything that we wanted to do in the budget with 5.49.
So I have a proposed solution. I will prepare 2 ordinances and you can choose at the meeting.
You always have good solutions.
Bill, did you throw some kind of a chart up there that I can make head nor tails out of?
I just shared, it's the millage chart that was attached to the agenda memo, and it has average homeowner recent sale and a sale from about 15 years ago, and what those different millage rates would mean for them.
Can you give me the numbers really quick?
Yeah, so for example,
I can read
property,
them myself. We're all here.
for an example homesteaded property from 2008, you can see the 5.49 would be a change of about $23 a year. The 5.52 would be an increase of $26 a year. So $3 is the difference in those 2 millage rates. For a more recent property sale, so higher value, so $36 increase at the 5.49 versus a $43 increase at the 5.52. So the difference between those millage rates is about $7
So I was
on
way
that
off.
property.
I was way off. It's $3 to $7. Okay, all right.
Right, so we will plan to bring some additional information about library staffing and costs to the September 5th meeting, as well as those 2 ordinances with the 2 rates. If there's nothing else, we'll have that ready for you.
Mary, I think I cut you off earlier, and I want to apologize for that. So,
I didn't notice. Okay, thank you.
so I apologize.
She's just still
I think it happens all the time.
part of the job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
So moving to millage, I believe.
That's the last direction we'll need to prepare an ordinance to bring for you all September 3rd.
So we'll let them prepare.
Yeah, agreed. My preference would be to go with the number that's in the budget.
All right, then we can prepare the ordinance at the proposed 5.5200, bring that and the proposed budget with these reconciliation changes and any of those final changes between now and September 3rd. We'll lay those out in the memo and prepare the resolution with those proposed changes.
Does anybody have a desire to see a different number?
I like smaller.
We all like smaller.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a 5.48, but because I think with utility costs and stuff like that, but I said this at the meeting, I will not be supporting that, so I'll probably be one of those. I'm
So-
just putting that out there now.
So just for discussion's sake, would you then eliminate something from the budget, or would you just have a lower fund balance?
To me, I'll put both options there. Personally,
I like a reduction in millage just as much. If you just looked at the chart, I think we've reduced or stayed even every year for the last 10, I believe. And so I'm usually with you, and to at least keep it where the budget is. And I'm certainly keep an eye on our targets for fund balance. And we certainly have things that we like to, or want to, and our residents want to have afforded to them as residents of our city. So those are all balancing thing, but I looked at the fund balance with the 5.48. I think it was around 15%, is that correct?
Correct, we'd be around 15.9, but it does lead to just a consistently declining trend, not a large one, but we started a decline from 15.9 to 15.3, so.
And that's if everything stays perfect.
Yeah, it's.
We don't get hit by hurricanes, we don't get hit by a tropical storm, we don't have,
How often do those happen?
never.
And to your point, Commissioner Robinson, all these out numbers are guesses, right? This is based on an assumed increase of 6%?
7%.
7%. So we may see 10% in property values. We maybe see 5. We don't really know. It's all guesses. It's all wrong, as Kim Adams used to point out. But it's just kind of what we're working on. We do, with pretty good certainty, know that at 5.52, we'll have about a 16%, 16.3% fund balance, hopefully. Of course, this year, our fund balance is a little more than we expected.
Right.
Because our revenues were down for various reasons. So these are all things that we need to take into consideration. But if we're planning to go at 5.48 or a higher number, we need to, I think we have to consider how that's gonna look next year, and then what those outguesses are, or consider what we are willing to give up in the budget. And that's, I mean, that's what we are. I appreciate the desire to go to 5.48. But I don't think that this budget has a whole lot of wiggle room to get down there without negatively affecting our fund balance, which my position has always been, our target is 20%, and really 15% is where we need to start moving up, because that's what saved us when 2008 and 2009 hit us, is because we had about a 20% fund balance.
So that's where you just got $882,000 to fix a sewer line
Right, yeah, one day.
one day.
Yeah.
So
And
880
how much was the fire truck?
We don't know yet.
unknown.
Don't know yet.
We should also keep in mind, as Commissioner, as Chris has been mentioning, that labor costs are going to increase. We're looking at labor shortages, and I would love, in a sense, to roll back to 5.485, but I don't think this is the year to go ahead and roll those dice. We have a lot of services that we're obligated to provide, and unfortunately, that all takes money. I mean, I don't think anybody's feathering their nest with this money. I think that we're providing essential services, and looking ahead at increasing costs, we should, be prudent and not cut our nose off.
Right, and let's be honest, when we're talking about the fee increases that we're looking at, or that we've already approved this year, those are all essential as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
to keep those funds at, running and being able to provide services that we provide, every single day. That's why, that was the reasoning behind those. That's right, to Commissioner Gerard's point. We're not just fluff. It's not fluff. It's money that is needed to be able to keep services at the level they are right now, and to be able to pay for projects that we know are coming in the very near future. So I agree and have voted with those kind of it's not really a rollback, but those decreases in millage over the last few years. And I understand where everybody's at. And every one of us here is a Largo resident. We're all paying taxes as well. and are affected by the fee increases. But at the same time, I don't know that you know, I'm a big proponent of keeping our fund balance, because I know that at some point, it's gonna, it's gonna be severely impacted, and we need to be able to provide those services at those times, more importantly than any time. So, I really want to be able to keep this city in a good space and be able to provide all the services to our residents that we, not only that we're obliged to give them, but that they want, the reasons they live here in the city of Largo.
I'm sitting here looking at our mission statement and thinking, okay, provide superior services that inspire community pride. And I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, and I'm okay with keeping it the same. And it's an election year. There's a lot of changes going on everywhere, and maybe next year things will level out a little bit more, and we can actually lower it a little bit. But
Well, it just depends. You've got two schools of soccer. You've got people who are purely reactive. They don't do anything unless they have to do it. But the city can't do that. You have to sit back there and take the long approach to this stuff. Just like when that sewer pipe went on Belcher Road, I remember I asked the question, how many lineal feet of that type of iron pipe do we have? And it's all about the same age, and there's literally thousands and thousands of linear feet of that type of pipe. Well, if that's going, the rest of it's going to be going too. So that's part of your long term. You better have your reserves sitting there for when that thing starts popping. You can go in there and you've got the money to fix the thing without going on a special assessment or having to run up to Tallahassee and borrow more money. Because if you borrow the money, it's going to be more money because you got the interest on it. So you got to give staff credit because they do take the long view on this stuff. I don't remember a time when an event happened where someone in that department was not aware and they turned around, they had the resources sitting there. I mean, once upon a time, we used to make fun of Public Works because they had snow plows down there. Right. And they could say, why do we have a snow plow down there? Well, it was designed if you have a hurricane here to push the debris out of the road. I guess we finally sold them. Didn't have me, but the fact of the matter was someone was thinking a little bit ahead, and that for its time was probably a good idea.
that's always
like I say,
one of the
you
things.
get this long-term thinking here, and that's why you have to have your reserves built up.
Right. That's one of the things I've always been proud about the city when we do go to League of Cities and we're talking with other cities and other officials, and it's like we're always, Largo has been like, just from what you see at these, when you talk with other people in other cities, we're like one step ahead. Like we've been so lucky that we do have the staff that we have that is always thinking ahead of the situation and not just, working with what we've got. And unfortunately, this is one of the things that we kind of have to do in order to stay ahead and keep our city, providing the services that people are looking for. And one of the reasons why they do move here.
Called avoiding management by crisis.
Yeah. I think when the Finance Advisory Board was going through the what would you cut, discussion, there really isn't a lot in there. It's not like we are adding bodies this year or anything like that. We are, we're doing what we got to do with salary adjustments, but that, to stay competitive so you keep the best people. But, we have to, and again, I think I think things are going to get more expensive, not less expensive if we kick them down the road. So that's the other part I'm worried about is that we're, we things are only going to get more expensive. They're not, for the foreseeable future, in construction particularly, but I don't think it's going to, that's going to be different on housing costs or anything else. So that's going to make property values go up, which is good. But for our, budget, but it's not, so I think, I just couldn't find anything that because I did look for a way to go to 5.48, but there was nothing I could good conscious pull out that I thought wasn't necessary. That wasn't gonna like kick other things down the road the following year, that was gonna cause it to become more expensive. It becomes like we keep kicking things down the road with these projects, then they just get more expensive. They don't get cheaper to get done, so.
And I'm just gonna add very quickly here that, we have been for years and years trying to regain a 20% fund balance. And every year we look at it and it creeps up a little bit and then it falls back a little bit. And it's that almost unachievable goal. We once were there, I think, but but even at 5.52, if you'll notice, it slips in the out years, which of course are lies, we understand.
So they're incorrect.
Incorrect, but and with the way and with the way that the environment and global warming is going and the trend toward more and stronger storms, there's gonna come a day where we're gonna really wish we had that. And that's what we're talking about, thinking in the long term and being ready for this sort of thing, so.
Kind of to that point, one thing I wanted to add was I was, a couple weeks ago, I was fully prepared to come in and say, listen, we can hold off on raising waste or stormwater fees. Like the other two, we can't. We have to raise the solid waste fees, we have to raise the sanitary sewer fees, but stormwater, we can hold off, and then Debbie proved me wrong.
That's right.
So, I didn't say a word last week about stormwater fees.
And to Commissioner Hall's point, we are in the process of always replacing some of that stormwater pipe but.
Sure, and we're also middle of the road with prices compared to other municipalities around. Take a look, if you haven't, I'm not sure most if not all of us up here have, but look at the millages of the cities around us. Look at the millage rates. Look at the budgets of the cities around us that are our size, the total budgets. And as a resident, you'll probably be surprised that cities that are adjacent to us that have much more property value and the same or a little bit bigger or much smaller number of residents with higher millage rates than ours. You'd be surprised. We get a good value here, I think. So I think we're good on millage.
And I just wanted to bring up, this is the conversation everybody sitting around a table at home that is not wealthy is having conversations about reductions and stuff like that. And I want them to see us having this discussion right now instead of going, here's what staff presented. Walking door to door, I've gotten a feel from some people that and I told them we didn't do that, but it's the part of they're having to make cuts and decision making, and then here we are saying we need this, the city, and I get we are proud of our city, and I'm very proud of our city, and our staff do a great job with the budget, but I feel like we're getting good service, but we're also not, I have to work in my means also sometimes and cut things. Sometimes it's bad. I have to look at things and say, okay, I'm going into my fund balance to eat something because of X, Y, and Z. I want citizens to be able to sit there and say, look at this meeting and say, we had this conversation at this moment, and we didn't go from the 6 to now to 5, which we all kind of knew that it would go down back to where it is. But I think throwing out options and saying, looking at the budget, personally, I'm someone who says can go into the fund a little bit more, but that's just me. But there's always something we all need to be looking at and say, okay, do we really need, I hate to say playgrounds this year? And I know cost doesn't go down, but we've learned sometimes it does go down if you hold off a little bit. We found that with the Highland Rec project a little. It was put off a little bit, and then we found that it was a golden opportunity. I hate to use the word golden opportunity. And I'm rambling, but I just, that's just me.
So, Mr. Smith, can I just go back to the original question that the mayor asked for you then? And I'm absolutely willing to have that conversation. I don't think anybody here is not willing to have the conversation. What would you recommend? Because we've all looked at the budget. Mm-hmm. And we've all come to the conclusion that we are.
The fund balance.
So you're okay with, all right, so that would be the conversation. And then you would justify that how, when we needed that fund balance.
Well, that's,
That's just the conversation, right? Like, that's the conversation that I have to have around my family, around the dinner table, right? I mean, I don't have a dinner table, but that's how, with the conversation we have. So, I mean, look, I get it. I'm fully supportive of, the thought process that you're having and the conversations you're having with residents. We all we all do the same thing, right? We're all, nobody here is unique as to what we're doing in this community. But again, I mean, if we're gonna have, because I'm not comfortable, I am not by any means comfortable getting, dropping our fund balance. I'm not happy with it at 15%. I'm sure as heck not happy with it at 14. Right? So, that's the conversation, so that's where I would be, right? And if we could say, if I could have somebody give me a justification as to why it would be okay to go down there and what we could do, to then get it back up to where we think is a better spot, that's a conversation I'm willing to have. But just to say, let's cut the fund balance for what? Like, and if we do cut the millage from 552 to 548, what's the net savings per household? Per household.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got that here. So
less than that.
yeah, so for it would be for a homesteaded home, for example, like these two properties we talked about, it would be a difference of about $4 or $5 a year, depending on the property. So again, that's just an average. So the difference between those two millage.
$5?
I thought it'd be more like.
Sorry. As far as the change in
That's what I'm saying.
increase.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay.
So the increase, the 5.52 would be an increase of about $34. The 5.4850 would be an increase of about $29 a year for the resident.
The recent purchased.
For the recently purchased home. Okay. Commissioner.
I know.
That's what
I'm a
they call it.
No,
difference
look,
without a distinction.
I am by no means, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, and I hope that, I feel like this is a good conversation, so the residents at home can see both sides, right? I mean, I again, understand exactly where you're at, but for a $5 savings, in the overall big picture,
I took part 20.
Oh, you want the 20?
in the big picture of things, I think the financial stability that we would be able to provide the residents of this city for, what would average about $5 per person or per household is in my mind, that's a pretty dang good deal, right? Like, if we need that 1%, to be able to provide for the residents in a point where, it's emergency or, some type of storm or something, I would rather have that. Again, it's just where I'm at in that. So good conversation. I appreciate it.
And I will say that I appreciate not getting people on this committee, because normally we're also talking about, or some folks are talking about raising the millage rate to get that closer to 20, which I appreciate that, but now it's certainly not the year, right?
Agreed.
And I appreciate that everybody went around the table here and said, hey, now's not the year to bump up that millage a little bit, to recoup some of this fund balance, because our goal is 20%. We all understand that, and so I appreciate that as well.
I would like to just add that,
I wasn't talking to you.
No. I'm not running for reelection, let's just go. Let's go to 6, right? Can we get agreement on 6 mills? No, but
On your way out the door?
Yeah. So.
I'm not walking out to the
You'll owe
parking lot
Michael
with you.
$10.
But I think it's important for us to all realize that fund balance, along with everything else, is a fiduciary responsibility of our city. We are responsible for having that for our citizens, because we're responsible for taking care of emergencies. And I would love to see it get back up to 20%.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna happen this year. Maybe down the road we can start inching our way back, but not this year.
But you know, there's another thing about, a lot of these people down in Sarasota that they've been on the news about the flooding. And I cannot tell you how many of them said, we have no reserves to take care of the damage to the house or to the business or whatever. The city cannot afford not to have the reserves
That's
because
right.
they expect us to perform. You know, if something happens, I want you to put the fire out of the house. If the pipe breaks, I want the thing fixed. If my toilets don't work, I want them flushing. We don't have a choice on that.
You wanna hear some screaming?
Well, yeah,
Don't
we-
have the money to do that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think this has been a good conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, forget the $5, Michael. You can't have it.
Thank you. We'll prepare the resolution and ordinance accordingly, and just certainly for the public, you know, the next
Meeting's adjourned.
You forgot those two.
No, I think we covered everybody.
They talked enough tonight.
Holmes and Hulk look close, look similar.
Well, they're-
Commissioner Holmes.
except for their differences, they're both the same.
That's correct.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, before we pass the final budget, I would suggest that we pass the hat around the commission to see if we can raise $5 to help Commissioner Smith.
A little better?
I'm in. I'm in. You pass the hat off.
Thank you, good idea. Meeting's adjourned.